sure you guys show up. And show up at your call time. Show up at the time that you're supposed to be there, and do your homework. Cause you never know. Like Andrew was saying, in between services, sometimes they, altar calls.
Yeah.
Altar calls just can either extend or they can be really short.
Yeah.
So if people are just so broken, altar calls going, and sometimes if you get 45 minutes in between, and altar call went a little bit longer, you might get like 20 minutes. Sometimes people you got that one lady that's always screaming,
man.
"Oh,
Yeah.
senor!" You got that one lady that's going crazy in the back. But that's the importance of also doing your homework, because when you show up, you know exactly what you need to do. Even if your setup time is cut a little bit short, you know exactly what you're going to do already. So, you can't count on that, if class goes short. When I was in class, fire drills would happen or anything like that. Like, I couldn't even do my homework now, I waited on that time, on all the class time, to try and get my homework done. And it wasn't there. And if you're kind of waiting backstage to try and learn this lick in between, it's not going to happen. So make sure you already do your homework and show up on time, because you never know what could happen.
You know what, Alex? There's another thing that a lot of churches go, because not all churches have their own building.
Right.
Not all churches have their own building. I know Seal Beach is going through a transition, of moving to a different building. But I know for our situation, those points that we're talking about right now are so important, because since right now we don't have a time or a date for our rehearsal to be taking place. There are times where the team can't meet up, for whatever the reason is that they can't rehearse. So they really have to rely on doing their homework or doing their parts at home, And so for those times, like I know, and as Andrew was mentioning before, we have two services. We have in English and we have the Spanish. So we have time frames for us to set up and for us to rehearse.
Yeah.
And so I think those teams that have that struggle, you have a huge benefit, because you start valuing the time that you have for rehearsal, the times that you really have to be there, and you can't waste any time. So these key points are just so important, as we're mentioning. I think it's a great idea that we're talking about this, because there are different scenarios, different situations for all of us. It's not always the same story. We all have, different churches. We all have different policies, different, rules for our buildings, And if you own a building, your church owns a building, dude, that's awesome. That's great.
That's a huge relief, man. Not having to lug in gear. Are you kidding me?
You can only imagine what you can do, But for those that, that are just starting, for those that are just building their team, and you're renting a building, value the time that you have, start building on these key points, because as you start growing as a team, your church will start growing. By the time you have your own building, but by the time you do have your own building, you have a foundation that your team is already based on. But most of all, knowing that your foundation, of course, you're putting the Lord first and having Him as a foundation, but knowing that you're growing as a team and you're putting these policies or these rules or laws, however you want to put it, for your team, standards, and you're structuring your team the way it's supposed to be. So I just want to throw that out there.
Well, that's good, because that's true. Not everybody really does deal with their own building. Or if you do have a stable building, sometimes you're sharing buildings with the 2-3 congregations. So all this stuff, everything we're covering here, we're speaking in a general sense. But more than anything, you can work it around your own way. Planning ahead, maybe you don't have to plan the month out. This is not going to be the perfect way to do it. But you definitely have to have some plan ahead in order to make your rehearsal effective. And every one of these keys, we're not telling you a specific way you have to do things. But we believe these keys are definitely foundational for all your rehearsal, so that your rehearsal can be as effective as it can. Whether you got 2 hours, 3 hours, whether you're in a rented building. There's people that record in the studio sometimes. They record in a local, studio. They don't even have a building to record in. So, this is not going to be like a perfect method. This is the only way that works.
Definitely.
But these keys are definitely going to be foundational for your team, and this is going to help your team grow. And we got one more, so that's going to be the good part. We got one more, and then this last one I think is very important. And the last thing that, one of the last keys to do is structure out your rehearsal. Sometimes, we get to the rehearsal and you're all there and you're trying to run through the sets. But it gets a little bit difficult when, maybe the musicians need a little bit of help in this section.
Yeah.
So the voices sometimes
Yeah.
they'll take their phones out, they'll start going to the bathroom, and then okay, we're ready to run through again, but the voices are nowhere to be found. So
Yeah.
um, I'll share my structured rehearsal, and what I like to do is I like to split them up. I like to take advantage of all that time. If we're together and I need help with the musicians, then the voices lose 20 minutes. Then
Yeah.
we're trying to help the voices, then the musicians lose like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a good idea to separate and to split up, because that entire, whether it's for a certain amount of time, I take an hour where we split up. Voices go in one room, the musicians will usually stay in the sanctuary, and so you get that entire hour. No one's distracting the voices. You're focused purely on the harmonies, on running through the sets, and the musicians are focusing on the sections that they need help with. So structure out your rehearsal. Make sure you get there, have a split rehearsal, and then come together, and that's where you really run through the performance. You fine tune in the split rehearsal, and then the performance comes along. And you run through the entire performance like if you were there on the Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So, that's usually what I like to do. You guys want to share a little bit of how you guys kind of structure out your rehearsal?
I think at the moment, as we mentioned before, since we're going through transition at Seal Beach, we're starting to do that. It's a really good idea, and we're starting to work on parts for vocals, on band members as well, and something that I think it's so important, like you mentioned before, you don't want to waste anybody's time,
Right.
so you want to definitely want to work on parts and things like that. But structure wise, it's something that like we're meeting once a week. Abraham, which is our worship leader, Andrew, I, and Abby, which is our young adults worship leader, as well. And we're beginning to do that. We're beginning to
Yeah.
do structure.
Good.
Because we're realizing that we're struggling, and we're like, why are we struggling? On rehearsals. So we're beginning to structure, our practices, for that reason, is because we want it to become a flow. We want to work on parts because details in the worship team is so important. They make a huge
Yeah.
difference, And when you put everybody all together, because you worked on parts and stuff like that with the band, it sounds a lot better and a lot cleaner,
Yeah.
But we're going through that transition right now. We're just as we are, and just as most people are out there, are building and structuring their rehearsals, and just as their team, So we're really new to that,
Right.
and to that aspect. I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
Yeah. If you want to structure your rehearsal, you got to structure your practice. And in
Mhm.
order to do that we actually have an idea out for vocals, to have like a Dropbox file or like a PDF file
Mhm.
to like basically go through each part, like the lead part, whether it's like harmonizing, like the melody, like the tenor, or whatever it is, and resources. They're really important for your worship team, whether it be like a lead line tutorial for lead guitar player or a
Right.
bass line or like a drum, anything that requires to really give dynamics to a song. And dynamics are really important because you don't just want to have like
Mm.
a open and closed hi-hat throughout your entire set,
Yeah.
and
Right.
it's so, or things like that. But really structuring your rehearsals to structure practicing, time at home, things that we can do at home, like resources and just things like that. So all that is very, very much important.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the last things that we cannot skip. Yeah, we split up, and maybe we'll detail the voices and the singers, but
Yeah.
always, whether it's at the end or in the beginning, that moment of, what, you're also rehearsing how to be in God's presence,
Yeah.
because that's the overall goal of this thing. We want the skillful music. We love the entertainment, the lights, the media, all that stuff is good.
Yeah.
But everything that we do is going to tie down to trying to get God's presence to come into
Yeah.
this place. And so, if you structure out your rehearsal, whether it's in the beginning where you have a time of devotion or a time of prayer, or a time of what we usually like to do is we actually have praise and worship in our rehearsal. So we just get, whether it's just a simple band, but all the singers, the choir, and all the musicians come together, and there's a band playing, and we just play one praise song, one worship songs, and we ourselves,
Yeah.
we get into that moment, we get into that spirit as well,
Yeah.
to not only ourselves get into God's presence, but we want to help lead others into
That's
God's
right.
presence. So
Yeah.
definitely structure your rehearsal. From beginning to end. You got 2-3 hours. You got to make the most of it. So
Yep.
Those are the 5 keys that we have gone through, and you want to plan ahead. You want to be able to plan. Make sure that there's a plan in place for what it is that you're gonna do, and you want to communicate that plan. Communicate that plan all across your team with your musicians, singers, or if you have people positioned, make sure you tell your leaders so that those leaders tell the people. If you got somebody over the choir, tell that person so that person then communicates to the choir. And of course, communication in the form of make sure if you're not going to be there, you got to let somebody know, talk to somebody, try to cover yourself. So communication and planning, huge. Our third key, rehearsal is not the place for you to learn. This is not going to be the place where you're going to come learn your part. This is a place where you're going to rehearse the performance. You're going to bring your piece of the puzzle, as Andrew says, and bring it all together. And you want to be punctual, and you want to do your homework. Key number 4, be punctual. Show up at the call time. And do your homework at home when you're sitting down. Make sure you do your homework. Do what it is that you have to do. Learn your part. Know your part. You want to show up already knowing what it is that you have to do, and you want to take advantage of that call time so that you have enough time to set up, sound check, and if there's extra minutes, then you can run through an extra lick or two or tighten something up. You never know what could happen. And structure your rehearsal. When you get to your rehearsal, have a time of praise and worship or devotion, and then have a time where you guys can split up so that there's detail on both voices, musicians, choir, whatever it may be, however you split up your rehearsal, and then come together and rehearse the performance like it is on Sunday morning. So take these 5 keys for your worship team, whatever works best for you, but I think these 5 keys are foundational. And I think that these can help just better your worship team. We just want to share what it is that's going to help better grow and make your worship team of better quality. I don't know if you guys want to add anything else.
No, I mean, I think we really touched on all the main principal keys. This also goes for tech. For those that tech is, sound engineering.
Yes.
I've been doing tech for 8 years. And our church for the rock, and something I've learned was being punctual. Even if you're just doing sound, I think I think a lot of the homework is knowing how to connect stuff, being prepared, and to okay, what are we gonna have? 2 keys, we're gonna have a drum, we're gonna have a sax player. Okay, I gotta make sure that all that is ready to go for rehearsal. So I think it goes for tech as well, for those tech teams out there that are struggling to how to prepare. You do that. You start by communicating with your worship team, and overall it's just I think really it's awesome. It's once you have these keys, you have that foundation, and you're good to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Without a tech team, there'd have no sound for a worship team. So
you can need those. So make sure you communicate with them.
Very, very important.
Yeah, exactly. Because us musicians don't want to spend all that time plugging in stuff.
Right. No, so if there's anything that you'd like to add, that you want to add to our 5 keys to an effective rehearsal, feel free to like, comment, or say anything that you want to put in the comment section, and we're just sharing with you guys our experience and everything that we've dealt with. So, subscribe, share it, take this if it helps your team. Let us know exactly if this can help your team, if this has helped your team. If you try to apply these keys, let us know how it's been, and we'd love to hear from you. And once again, I got Martin and Andrew from The Rock over at CO Beach. I will post their social medias, and you guys can follow them, like, and see exactly what it is that they're doing. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for coming down. I really
appreciate for having us. Yeah.
This is Better Worship Building, and we'll see you guys on the next one. What's up, you guys? Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out the YouTube channel. Now, what I need you to do is to go down and click that subscribe button. That way you can stay up to date, get notifications, and if you also want to keep up as to when our next video is going to be released, follow me on my social medias, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and get all the updates right there so you can stay alert as to when our next video is out. Thank you so much.